The All-African Alliance movement has launched ahead of the 2024 general elections. The new kid on the block has put forward former Chief Justice Mogoeng as its presidential candidate. The party says it aims to fight inequality and address imbalances in South Africa's judiciary in order to promote peace and a corruption-free nation. Let's talk further about this then with political analyst Ongama Mtimka. Ongama, a very good evening to you. Welcome to News at Prime. So, a new political player led by a former Chief Justice. Is this what this country's democracy has been lacking?
Good evening to you, Tembekile, and your viewers. It is in the nature of a political system that is failing or that's facing a legitimacy crisis to attract what economists would call a crowding in effect by players who perceive the political market to be open enough to welcome new players. If you look at the rhetoric of the AAAM, they are highlighting moral degeneration and leadership outcomes that are not serving society as their basis to launch this initiative. And they are playing on the platform of credible leadership as an alternative to what is out there. So it's a sign of the times that we are in a system where there's a decline of the majority party system, which is ushering in what looks at this stage like a multi-party democracy. It's inevitable that you are going to have people form political parties in order to contest elections. I mean, if you saw in the local government elections as well as the national general elections, we saw in huge numbers of new political parties that are vying for the political market in South Africa.
So this organization also has a very, shall we say, strong Christian ethos, if you will, in its messaging. And I wonder how well that'll work for it if it wants Mogoeng to be president, when you consider that South Africans have not been found to, in the majority, vote along religious lines. I mean, look at the ACDP. Yes, they're present in Parliament, but their time there has not been a success in terms of majority votes or a large growth percentage.
Absolutely, Tembekile, you're quite right that though South Africa has got a majority Christian population, it has not necessarily been the case that they would rally behind political parties that appeal to religion. And while indeed some religious messaging has been exploited by political parties, or in fact some theological base for certain political programs, including apartheid, was exploited, parties which have an explicit religious focus have failed to attract much attraction in South Africa. In the democratic period, all parties which emphasize identity politics, as it were, have been, and it looks like for me, even into the future, will continue to be on the fringes. However, there is indeed a market for people who hold Christian values in this case, or in fact even Muslim values, if you look at the rise of, or the relative permanence of Al-Jamaa in the political system as well as the ACDP. So indeed, the proportional representation system was designed such that key constituencies in the country will always have representation should there be enough a number of people that those parties appeal to. Even in this instance, I don't anticipate that a movement, the AAAM, would in fact gain the traction that is significant as far as mobilizing a huge voter base, notwithstanding the fact that you've got both traditional Christianity as well as charismatic Christianity. But leading to 2024, pathways to the presidential office, as it were, are going to mirror what's happening in local government, where it doesn't follow that a party has to be big in order to have a chance at the executive.
They also speak about addressing imbalances, inequality in the country's judiciary, and I wonder how much of a voting issue that is for many South Africans, or if it's going to be increasingly an issue when you consider the voting issues of the recent years being corruption, unemployment, levels of violence, and the rest of it.
Look, it's interesting you picked it up too. I was quite interested in that for two reasons. One, former Chief Justice Mogoeng has hinted at judicial capture before. And also there's a sense in which he's wanted to be open about corruption in the judiciary, but perhaps given the protocols of, incumbency and also the decorum that goes with being a former Chief Justice, we don't know whether there's more that he still has to say, which he needs to say, but clearly it's galvanizing him and his constituency enough to want to do something about it. So I'm interested in his perception of decay, and I hope that in the coming months or years, more details come to the fore as to what's happening in the judiciary. And then the second reason why it's important, Thembekile, is that you see in South Africa we are involved in a process where there has risen, especially in the politics of the governing party, the ANC, a grouping that has been agitating for jettisoning the idea of a constitutional democracy in preference of a parliamentary democracy. Coupled with that, a grouping that strongly feels that the courts in South Africa play a role that is not welcome, or what has been previously called governing through the courts.
Right.
So it's important that this plays out so that we get to see whether indeed him being an insider has got information which can help us understand the extent of decay within the judiciary.
Just on the point about being an insider, can a former Chief Justice, the leading figure in the country's judiciary, as he was, talk about the ills, the wrongs in the system without being scrutinized himself about what he did to address that while in office?
Absolutely. That's going to be, especially being the immediate former Chief Justice, because that's the ultimate leader of the judicial arm, as much as a president is the leader of the executive. And also, I mean, if you look at it, judges are strongly discouraged from being involved in politics while in office. I don't know. I think you started asking whether they can, in fact, participate. I'm not sure what the law says, but I think what gives me slight comfort, I do feel that this is a demotion, by the way, from a stature point of view, because I think that the voice of a former Chief Justice in the body politic of South Africa going forward is guaranteed that whenever former Chief Justice Mogoeng raised his voice into the future, it would be listened to by virtue of the fact that he's a former Chief Justice. Okay. It's a demotion, in my view, to be involved in party politics, but as he says, he's following a divine prompting. It will be interesting how that plays out.
Ongama Mtimka, political analyst, thank you for your time tonight.